Good morning and welcome, everyone who is joining us today from around the world for our A Taste of SPI webinar series. I'm so glad that you've decided to join us today, and I am excited to welcome our webinar guests to share a little bit about their course, Analysis, Understanding Conflict, which will be at the 2026 Summer Peacebuilding Institute. In a few minutes, we are going to hear from Gloria Rhodes, Gaurav Patania, and Oscar Sawali, who together will be offering this exciting course at the Summer Peacebuilding Institute. Once again, thank you for joining us today. This webinar series, which we are playfully calling A Taste of SPI, is a free webinar series designed to give you a preview of the Summer Peacebuilding Institute experience. These short interactive sessions offer a chance to sample these courses, like today, Analysis, Understanding Conflict, to meet the instructors and to engage with the questions and practices and approaches to learning that define SPI. So whether you are joining for the first time or have just found out about the Summer Peacebuilding Institute, or whether you're returning from one of the 30 years that the Summer Institute has been running, we are so glad to have you. Throughout the time today, we invite you to use the comments section to ask questions, which we will respond to and engage with. And as you're joining, to share where you're joining from. It's fun to see where this worldwide group of people are at any given time. So please share with us where you're joining us from today. Before we get started, I am going to offer a short video about the Summer Peacebuilding Institute so that we can all get a better sense of the energy and the vibe that is present here in the summer. The 2026 Summer Peacebuilding Institute is going to run from May 18th to June 12th. We have a huge variety of 12 different courses that we'll be offering during that time. And you can find more about that by visiting emu.edu/SPI. Enjoy this video that is to follow. It will play for about 3 minutes, and then we will bring our webinar guest onto the stage.
So to me, SPI is a place where people from all around the world can come together who are interested in learning and networking with each other to share stories and skills and to come together and learn about how to build peace in our communities, in ourselves, our families, and in systems of injustice.
It's just powerful. It is really powerful to be in a place where people ultimately share the same goal of a more just and peaceful world. That's a really powerful thing to be a part of.
When you come to FPI, if you're a practitioner, regardless of where you're from and regardless of sort of what your work includes, you feel like you're not alone. Participants will say, this is my place, this is my people, because people understand what I'm talking about. People understand me and I don't have to explain. And so this idea of, we don't share everything, we don't share a language even often, but when we're talking about conflict, we're talking about trying to make change happen in constructive ways and in positive ways.
Why I find SPI valuable is that I get to see multiple perspectives when I come here. I get to see people from other countries that I don't see in my normal life. And I also get to experience the curriculum of very, very different ways of dealing in the world, like the peace building, the conflict analysis, and have conversations that I don't have in my day-to-day life as a faculty member.
There aren't so many places where we get to really connect, reflect, get a little more honest with ourselves, maybe learn more from each other than we can in a typical academic or even a typical public kind of engagement situation.
There's a lot more to SPI than just the courses. First of all, it attracts really fantastic people who are looking to do good in the world and who are looking to build community.
Everybody you meet on the road of EMU, the Eastern Mennonite University, is so friendly. I tell you, this place reminds me of Africa. This place reminds me of my community. Eastern Mennonite University is a place that I have been able to bond with several people.
I experienced a tremendous sense of welcome, not just when I arrived, but throughout my time here. I felt like I was loved before I came here, that the space, that the courses, that the care materials were all prepared for me, for this learning community in a very intentional, loving way.
Don't miss out. You have to come. It is truly a unique place. It is an incubator, it is a networking space, and there's a lot that we learn and grow together here.
All right. So thank you all again who are joining us today for this webinar. I forgot to introduce myself, and my name is Corey Schaefer. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of Programs here at the Center for Justice and Peacebuilding. And so as part of that role, I offer some leadership and support to the Summer Peacebuilding Institute. And now, without further ado, I'm going to bring our guests to the stage. Gloria Rhodes, Gaurav Patania, and Oscar Sawali. And I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves and share the main portion of our webinar today with you.
Thank you, Corey. Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be with you and to be able to highlight our course that we're starting to get excited about. It's only a couple of months away now. It's hard to believe that because I'm looking out on the snow here in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And so we call this the Summer Institute. So hopefully it'll be warm by then. Like I said, I'm Gloria Rhodes. I'm a faculty member at the Center for Justice and Peacebuilding. I teach in the master's degree programs that we offer. And I'm also the academic director that helps to deal with student advising and making sure that we're doing what we say we do. I've been at EMU for 34 years in many different roles. And I welcome my co-instructors, Gaurav and Oscar, and if you would please introduce yourselves.
Yes, my name is Gaurav Patania. I'm an assistant professor of sociology and peacebuilding at EMU, and I formerly served as interim director of the Center for Interfaith Engagement. My work primarily focuses on caste conflicts, identity struggles, caste and mental health, globalization and justice, and especially how the communities navigate structural violence and cultural resistance. I grew up in India and earned my doctorate there in Jawaharlal Nehru University, where I studied student movement and collective identity as resistance. I'm an anti-caste activist, and my work examines how caste conflict shapes not only politics but everyday life. Beyond academia, I engage through activism, poetry, and community work, and very committed to understanding struggle from the inside out. So yeah, and I welcome Oscar for the introduction.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, and thanks to Gloria for that initial introduction. Colleagues, my name is Oscar Siwali, is my surname. I am based here in Cape Town, in South Africa, and I'm the director of SADRA Conflict Transformation, a civil society organization that builds capacity of community members, religious leaders, and young people with a strong focus on non-violence and building peace within communities. I do that on a daily basis. So what my work looks like is training people, what some people often call multiplying Oscar. So people that you meet here, they'll talk about the vision to multiply Oscar, and that vision is based on the fact that when I do conflict resolution, mediation, I see the beautiful tapestry that is woven out as you handle violent situations bring peace into a home, into a community, into a neighborhood. And I would love to see many people doing that. Some colleague years ago said how beautiful it would be if instead of sending thousands of soldiers to a conflict, we actually sent thousands of peace builders, and see the difference that that would make. So that's what I live for on day-to-day basis. I work on the field. I resolve conflicts as well as building the capacity of people, young people, and adults. So I'm looking forward to this session and bringing the African perspective onto it. And what's exciting to me is I've been working with Gaurav and working with Gloria, where we bring in North America, India, Africa into the room. So that's really exciting, and I think that's something to look forward to. So yeah, thank you so much.
For sure. Thank you, Oscar and Gaurav. I wanted to let our folks in the room know that Gaurav actually is teaching today, and so am I. But Gaurav has a class coming up in about 15 minutes, and so I'm going to get us started with some thinking, and then Gaurav's going to speak a little bit about what he's bringing into the room with him as he comes to this task of analysis. So when we think about this this course, this is a class that has been taught at CJP for many, many years, much even before me. And the idea is thinking about what is analysis? Why do we really put this as front and foremost as one of the very first courses students take when they come to CJP? And so I want us to think together about the difference between telling a story about conflict and analyzing a story about conflict, and what is the difference between that. And if you think about it, and in a moment I'll give you a chance to think about a specific situation for yourself, but what we're interested in is thinking about what are the things that what are we doing when we're telling a story? And so anyone, you're welcome to add into the chat here anytime, because we all also learn from each other. That's one of the principles of the Summer Peacebuilding Institute, is that everyone in the room is a learner and a teacher. And so we want to learn from you all as well this morning. And so thinking about what is it that we're doing? What is it that we're about when we're telling a story? So think about that. And if you have things you want to add them in the chat. And in a moment, we'll ask the question, what is it that we are doing when we're analyzing, and why? But we'll get there in a moment. And as you think about a story, maybe you could think about your own story of a time when you were treated unfairly. And so we will be using analysis, the course, to understand more about conflict. That is in the title, after all. We want to understand what's going on, and we want to be able to describe something about what we are understanding. So I'm not seeing the chat. Maybe you can help me, Corey. What kinds of things are popping into the chat, if any?
Joining you for a moment. So far, we haven't had anything pop into the chat, so we'll continue to give it some time for folks to engage.
Lots of things there from folks and where they're coming from, and I'm seeing some friends, some old friends there, and some new ones as well. Good to see you all. In the interest of time, especially for Gaurav to have a chance to speak, I will say that one of the things that we are typically doing when we're telling a story is that we are trying to craft something for the other person to see from our point of view. We want the other person to hear us. We often want support. We often want to bring on board people to see from our way, our perspective. And we want to be able to talk about the other people and what they did. So like if we are telling a story about a time that we were treated unfairly, then we have in mind a person or people we have in mind something that they did, right? And we have in mind how we want the people that were our audience to feel about those people that treat us unfairly. So we have this sense of a person, a who, and we have a sense of a what they did to us, a what. And so I often think in terms of these questions, who and what. And we also want to think about how they treated us and how we want you to feel. And so we have this who and this what and this how. And so I often organize my thinking in sets of questions like this. And I think the questions help us be very organized, or not very organized, but somewhat more systematically organized about our inquiry, about asking and trying to understand what's going on. And so if we ask the question who and what and how, is that enough? Is that enough for our story when we're telling our story? And I will ask you, Oscar and Gaurav, is that enough? Who and what and how? Do we have enough information yet? Oscar, do we have enough information? If we know the who and the what and the how?
We still need to ask more questions because there's depth within every story, and so continuing to build on the questions around understanding the people that are involved, what they bring into the story, what you bring into the story. I think for me that's usually the most fascinating part, is what I bring into the story. And I think as peace builders, we often leave that part out. Most of us, we don't recognize that we also carry quite a lot as we enter into a space of building peace, a space of assisting others. So that's usually the excitement for me. It's asking more questions around the space, and using as many frameworks as possible to understand what we are actually dealing with within the space that we are working in, especially in understanding who are the people that we are encountering in this space, but very much your own identity and your own issues.
Absolutely. And we will certainly include that in our course as we think about who we are in the work that we're approaching, or that we would like to be doing, or that we're doing. I'm seeing in the chat that Patty, hello Patty, is adding that we need to know the when as well. So we have like these three questions, the who, the what, and the how, but we also need to know the when, like what has happened before and what is going on now. And then Patience, hello, is adding we need to understand why, for sure. So the when and the why, and then also the crucial question of where. And it's not just location, but it's also context. So the context in which a conflict is happening, and so we can talk about context analysis, we can talk about conflict analysis, we can talk about community analysis. And what we mean is we're trying to understand what's going on. And that's the goal here. And so this course is trying to help us figure out what's going on. We're going to be looking at things systematically. And so my asking those questions is a very pragmatic, practical way, because we're really focused on practice. But at the same time, we also need to understand theoretically where some of our understandings come from, and how we understand things theoretically. And I'm going to ask Gaurav to talk about that a bit, because one of the things that sociology lends to us is this wonderful ability to help us to look at theory as it is, as we connect it to practice. So Gaurav, I'm going to give you time now, because I know you need to.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria, and thank you, Oscar, and thanks, Patty and Patience, for highlighting that how, when, and also where is also very important in storytelling. Stories are where we remember who we are, and when we discover who we might become. Gloria, it's an honor to to teach along her side, and also she's a kind of mentor to me. And I learned in her classes that how stories are the maps we draw through chaos, and so others can find meaning where we once felt lost. So there are multiple ways to understand the different kind of stories, and these are stories of conflict that we'll be studying here. Many conflicts around the globes are not just about money, power, or territory. We recognize that those visible issues are often expression of something deeper, and at their core many conflicts are about unmet human needs for security, identity, recognition, dignity, or belonging, and justice. So today I want to begin with not just with the theory, but just a story that we all are familiar with, the 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 conflict and the war that is going on in Gaza. So here there's a picture of this refugee camp, and you know, at the edge of a war-torn country where you see a lot of women standing. Think of a mother standing in line holding a small bowl, and then holding her son. Beside Behind them there are all other sounds of explosion. They will never forget that. There are their home reduced to dust, and nights so filled with fear that sleep itself becomes so dangerous. So they are carrying inside them their lot of trauma. They are carrying real trauma, grief that feels like stone, and fear that lingers long after the bombs fall silent. But at this moment, child is not thinking about trauma. Even people, these women stand, they are not thinking about trauma. They are thinking about bread. So there is another picture I'm just showing from the previous from Armenian refugee crisis. So now, once the when you look at these pictures, there are how and when we experience also stomach when remain empty for a few days, it growls louder than our memories. It demands attention more urgently than the fear. Hunger is very immediate, and it does not wait for politely behind psychological wounds. And this is where you see the basic human need theory becomes so powerful. So I wanted to introduce you to this basic human need theory, which is in the next slide, you will see the map of this Maslow, who proposed that basic human needs are structured in levels, and at the base are psychological needs: food, water, warmth, and rest. And above that comes safety, then belonging, and then esteem. And finally, self actualization, the fulfillment of one's potential. So, the crucial insight is this, that the higher needs cannot function when lower ones are unmet. And this is what the crux of. So when the stomach growls, the mind cannot process therapy. When the body weakens, dignity begins to fade. And when dehydration burns the throat, hope becomes abstract. So once we often speak about refugees in terms of trauma recovery, but we design counseling programs, we talk about resilience, and yet those are all essential. But for a refugee or a war survivor, the first prayer is not emotional healing, it is for bread. And that is the basic human need theory teaches us, that something simple yet very profound. Before we can talk about dreams, identity, confidence, or purpose, we must ensure survival. So in today's world, when we look around this ongoing war and displacement, this theory is not merely academic, it's very practical. Explains how why food distribution, clean water, and shelters are not just humanitarian services, they are the psychological foundations. So when only then actually when when can safety matter? When your stomach is fed, only then belonging begins. Only then can education take roots. Only then can trauma therapy can be effective. So without meeting basic needs, higher intervention collapse. So imagine trying to prepare for like in our scenario, imagine trying to prepare for an exam after 2 days without food. imagine trying to explore your emotional wounds while your body is shutting down from dehydration. So the brain is wired for survival first and growth comes second. So this theory that you are looking at the screen, it is about how he helps us prioritize action. So there's few function that it does, that how emergency response must begin at the base of this pyramid. Food security is not separate from mental health, it supports it. And the second, it is build empathy. When we see refugees only through the lens of trauma, we risk overlooking their immediate physical suffering. And Maslow pushes us to ask a foundational question: have their basic needs been met? And third, it prevents unrealistic expectation. We cannot expect displaced individuals to integrate quickly or excel academically or find such stable employment or rebuild confidence while they're still struggling for their daily survivals. So I think this theory reminds us that human dignity starts with survival. And once the survival is secured, something remarkable happens. People do not remain at the bottom, they move upwards. They seek safety, they form relationship, they regain confidence, they rediscover aspirations. So there is no healing without eating, though no dignity without nourishment, or no future without food. So as a student and practitioner, policymaker or leaders, this perspective matters deeply. The decision you make one day about budgets, program policies, or intervention, it will reflect your understanding of how what human begins truly needs first. So remember the order: the before therapy, it's bread; before ambition, it's safety; and before dreams, it's survival. So let me leave you with the question. And you look at this map, and so if you had limited resources to design a refugee support program, how would you decide between meeting immediate needs like food and shelter, and supporting long-term restorative needs like education or psychological healing? So, because the way we prioritize in the times of crisis reveals what we truly believe about dignity, recovery, and what it means to be human. So I would love to hear your response. So you can put it in the chat box. I'll stop here and get back to Gloria. And thank you for joining in, and thank you, Corey, for hosting. Thank you, Oscar, for being here. So I'll step out because I have class to attend. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gaurav.
Hmm.
So I will add that this type of theoretical analysis is always part of us trying to understand what's going on, because we all of us carry theories about how the world works. And so we'll also be talking quite a lot about our practical theories, about what we think about why things are happening and about how we understand conflict arising and why it is arising. And at the same time, we're going to be taking our theoretical materials and we're going to be saying, okay, in practice, how does this apply? And so Gaurav did a good job there of saying, this is why this is important. This is how this applies in practice. But we're going to also be looking at not only Maslow's human needs theory, but also several other versions of human needs theory, including Max Neef and including, even Rosenberg and even John Burton. And so that there are varieties of ways of interpreting different theoretical materials. And I'm sorry, I was just reading the chat. Thank you very much, Spike. And we'll have some other conversation about human needs too, because some human needs theorists will say it's not just about the bread. People will still kill people over a slight or over respect or over dignity loss, or all kinds of other things too. And so it's not just about whether we have bread today. So that's one theoretical perspective we learn stuff from. It's important, but also there are others. I want to get back to you, Oscar. I want to name that. And I also want to get back to our story that we ask you to tell yourselves. And we also want to take questions. So I'm not sure what order to do things in. But let's go back to our story. Is that okay with you, Oscar? If we go back to the story we asked people to think about. So if you thinking about a time that someone treated you unfairly, what I want you to also think about is, how did you feel about that? Because typically we don't all feel the same way. I see people in the chat too popping up, and so you're welcome to put anything into the chat that you like, any kinds of responses here. But I'm curious about a time that someone treated you unfairly, and how you felt about it. And then, and often, like, we'll talk about this in class. And so, like, how we felt, every one of us in this room probably felt something different. Some of us felt confused. Some of us felt angry. Some of us felt frustrated. Some of us felt lost. Some of us felt sad. And my point is, in terms of human needs theory, then we've got this theory that says, well, how are we going to know what we were needing? And these feelings, like if we can identify our feelings, that also suggests what we might have been needing. If we were feeling fear, we might have been needing security, for example. If we were feeling disrespect, or that we were feeling lack of respect or lack of dignity, we were needing respect, or we were needing fairness, or we were needing justice, all of that sort of thing. And the question is, but what were you needing in that moment when somebody treated you unfairly? What were you needing that you weren't getting, that anybody in the world might need? So this is the level of analysis that we're going to be doing. We're going to try to understand not just about ourselves, what ourselves becomes a very good example, but we're going to also be looking at, like, people groups. What might people groups be needing that they're using violence to get? So I need to stop there because this becomes a longer lecture. But really, what we do in this class is try to say, visually also, how do we understand what's going on here? How do we look at something and really be able to say, what are people needing, and what are people? And we absolutely have to look at power. Patience, thanks for naming that too. Different levels of needs, different power levels, and different. We also talk about different ways of meeting needs. Some of us need different things, satisfiers in different ways. Absolutely really good questions. And we will be dealing with these questions in this class. Like, how do we think about whose priorities to center, and who maybe those who are most vulnerable, perhaps, or when power pops up. I'm wondering if Oscar, if you might like to speak a bit, and if you want to take some questions. I'm not sure what to do next, but I'd like to stop my own talking and pass it over to you, Oscar. And I'm okay with us taking questions, or with you speaking a bit as well.
Thanks, Gloria. It will be good to have the questions, but maybe I can just expand on what you spoke about earlier on, around the analytical part, looking at the conflict, looking at the community, and I think that's the exciting part from my side, especially looking at what I have been doing in the last 20 plus years, and something that I would love to be able to share, but also to hear from others. And I think as we talk about issues of power that are critical as we engage, as we look at stakeholders and what they bring onto the table, and some that do not bring anything onto the table, and how often the power relations can be really, really imbalanced, and yet the parties need to work together in building peace. So those are exciting things that I'm looking forward to. I think the biggest question recently, and I think you asked that question at some time, and it's sort of stuck with me, and I've been reflecting quite a lot on it, and every time I go out to do work, I ask this question: peace for who? Because communities tend to be very interested in. We seem to be fine even with the level of violence and everything. Who is bothered, and whose agent are you as a peace builder who's walking into the space? And these become interesting questions that communities want to know, and how do you answer them? And are you able to answer them in a satisfactory way? And as you build peace, what do you benefit from it? Are you getting paid to? So these are critical questions that look into issues of are you enriching yourself on other people's pain? And these are, especially with young people in this part of the world, where they are constantly looking at Western ideologies, Western agendas, and at this moment, I think in time, Africa seems to be constantly asking whose agenda is being pushed at this time, and where are you getting your mandate in what you are doing? And so this question of whose peace and who's benefiting from it, and who's troubled by the violence and conflict that we have, which in some communities people tend to be comfortable in creating that for their own protection, because there are other things that cannot happen in the community when there's violence that's going on. So these are sort of interesting questions, as I'm hoping that reflecting from the South and putting some spice on North America, and getting a little bit of that spice from Guarab from India. I think it's going to be an exciting course that I look forward to, and I believe that with this combination, one can only walk away with tools, variety of tools that will be able to create peace. So let me pause there, because I'm very keen to hear the questions.
And Gloria and Oscar, I'm just going to join you on the screen to help facilitate some of these questions that are coming up. One that was in my mind before they started popping in the comment section was, what is the potential for harm, or where have you guys seen harm done when we don't ask these questions and when we don't do an analysis, but instead we lean from our own experience and story without reflecting on it first? There's a similar question here in the chat that I'll add, so we're at the same time. So Paul Evans says, this goes back to what Oscar previously said. How do I understand what I personally bring to a peace-building force that is moving forward?
Can you repeat what you said, Corey, as the first question?
Yeah, the question is a bit around if we're talking about this story and experience that I carry, and before doing an analysis, before asking all of these questions about power and who and when and where and why, what is the harm that is possible if we don't pause and do an analysis of the conflict, and we only proceed from our from our single lens? Or have you guys seen how doing an analysis of a conflict before trying to respond or intervene has prevented further harm?
I'm going to answer really quickly and in general, Oscar, and if you can come up with an example, I think you have good examples from your situation. I would say that the harm that happens is that we assume that we know things and that our biases are what get replicated in our action. And so, like, if we're serious about wanting to deal with colonial attitudes or imperialistic attitudes, or if we're serious about dealing with white superiority, or if we're serious about dealing with any kind of identity conflicts that are happening where one identity group triumphs over another, or I mean, we act out of our identity, and so the danger of not doing at least asking some good questions, right? Analysis is asking questions and then grappling with the answer, like the true answers, rather than just assuming that I know and going with, okay, this is the story that I've been told, this is the story I live with, and those people are like that, and that's what I believe, and I believe that I know. And so I believe that it's really important to do really good analysis work, because it helps us to deal with our biases. It helps us to more fairly look at the big picture, like, so that we can all share a picture of what's going on. I don't know. I believe that's essential to good peace building practice and planning. And now, Oscar, I'm turning it over to you.
All right, thanks, Lori. I think the biggest question there is what biases am I likely to bring onto this situation? And then, I mean, I usually ask myself a series of questions that line up with my identity, my race, my gender, my cultural background, because all of those are me. And one of the conflicts, I mean, about 2 years ago, there was a big conflict here that was on news, on television, where a farmer had expelled somebody who worked in the farm for many years. And that person, their father also worked in the farm. And it became a huge thing that was on the news. And I mean, it was in winter, and the person was thrown out of the farm, and they were sleeping on the road with their family. Various government departments got involved. It was a huge thing. I got invited by a colleague who had recommended my name to a judge. Now, think about this. This is an issue of land. This is a farmer who has thrown a black person onto the street. This is a white farmer, an Afrikaner. And so the first question that I asked myself, am I able to do this? And I said to this colleague, maybe you need a white person to do this. And the colleague said, Oscar, the media will never take it if a white person was to deal with this. And you are better off in checking your own biases in this situation. And I learned quite a lot around that. That you could. I was dealing with my own pain as well, of landlessness and prejudice, and having grown up in a racist environment. But I also had to realize that this was not about me. This was about helping these two families find peace in this journey. And it was their stories that were rich and were able to help us to resolve this situation. And maybe just for your interest, what really became the richest part in it is when this man's father told the story of how this white man's father grew in front of. So the black guy, his father worked for the father of the white guy. And they were very young when they met. And so talking about that background of growing up in front of each other, helping each other, and how this young white Afrikaner used to be carried on their shoulders by this grandpa, and now this whole family sleeps on the road. And it was at that point that the issue of who are we and what is our relationship, what is the journey that we have taken together, what has brought us to this moment, and we had to deal with those issues that brought the hurt and the harm and the betrayal that had happened between the two families, because there were things that the Black family had done that had betrayed the relationship that was there. But ultimately, we were able to bring peace and have that family move off the road to a nice, comfortable place. But what brought that was when we went back to 20, 30, 40 years ago, and really just harvested on the beauty of that story. But the question that you're asking is about me entering that space. I have to check my own biases. What baggage am I bringing in? And if I don't ask those questions, I am likely to cause harm more than good.
Thank you. Oscar, I'm very thankful for the stories and the experience you bring into this class, and I'm looking forward to this experience this summer. There's a question in the chat from Patty. It's more of a comment. Houston is considered the most diverse city in the US, 6.5 million people. And while yet it is so easy to meet people, but very difficult to get a sizable group of people engaged or even to believe that change is possible. So my addition to this is, how does analysis fit into this? What could analysis offer to this context in this situation?
Such a good question. How I would answer that partly is to say that what in our work to connect theory and practice, we talk about our own theories about how change happens, right? We're really interested in helping change to happen for the good, helping to change, especially when an easy way, or, well, I won't go there, but to say that, violence is generally considered to be easier than something involving a long time of talking and working out problems and that sort of thing. And so I would say that thinking about change and how each of us has a different idea about how change happens, that's a conversation we have to have. So Patty, talking about this, how do you get people to even believe that change is possible? People believe change is possible. The question is, what kind of change? And do they think that it's negative, or do they think that it's only certain ways that change? And so, like, our political sphere in the United States, our politics has helped us to think about, well, if we are this kind of person, we believe change happens this way. And if we're this kind of person, we believe change happens this way. And then we kind of have these fights and arguments about how change could happen or can happen. And the harder thing to do is for those of us to say, well, there are many ways forward. There could be many different ways. It's the question of how do we really work together to figure out what ways of change might be acceptable to the majority of us, because a lot of us don't like the way that other people want change to happen. It's disruptive, or it's scary, or it's harmful, or it's costly, or whatever. And so, yeah, it's a tough question. Oscar, I see you thinking. What are you thinking about that?
I'm thinking, and I think the big word is pace, because not everybody is able to change at the same pace as everyone else. And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. One of the many challenges is the fact that often people don't see the need for change because they are comfortable in their own background. What tends to be good is when some catastrophe or something happens, and it brings everybody to a point where they want to do something about the situation that they have. And I've often seen it in our country that when there is it's within the conflict resolution theory where we talk about where there's a common goal, that people begin to come together to work towards that. And when the goals seem not to be aligned, and I think that's the big thing to think about, is what is that common goal, and what is the benefit of working together towards that common goal. And I mean, we have pockets and places here in South Africa where people can be wealthy and don't need anybody. But often, if you think about the 2010 World Cup that came to South Africa, we all needed each other to make it work. And so whether rich or poor, we all pulled together. And I often look back at that moment as a defining moment for our country in bringing the rich, the poor together, black and white, and the in-between together, because there is a common goal that lies ahead of us. And so that seems to be the biggest thing, if you think about it. Those of you who will remember 1995, we had the Rugby World Cup here in South Africa, and Nelson Mandela used the Rugby World Cup as a common goal, something that the Afrikaners love, something that the black people love, and a huge part of the democracy that we have achieved immediately after 1994 came from that World Cup that brought everybody together. And so that's the big question. What is bringing us together?
We have one more question, if I can show it here. It's a bit in opposition to Oscar, what you're sharing about what are the sources that are drawing us together, but things that are also drawing us apart. And so Angie shares that sometimes the worst conflicts occur within families, especially after a parent or parents have died. And I can certainly agree and have witnessed this. I wonder how analysis might focus on these different levels of conflict. We've talked about the story within ourselves that we carry. We've talked about societal level conflicts. What about these family level, or what other levels do we have to focus on when we're analyzing a conflict?
Yeah, for sure. There are multiple levels. We all know this sort of intuitively. And what this class, what we're really working on is to make sure that we have some tools for analysis when we walk out the door of the class, so that when we go into a situation that we might be able to ask some key questions and have some tools to work with. And I would say that there are some tools that, like basic human needs theory, that can work at any level, but also there are tools that would work best at different levels. And so we have tools that work well at the family level, looking at, how, and I would say we especially looking at systems where and family systems, how sometimes the conflicts there become we name them as the worst because they feel so bad to us, right? They are the people that are the closest to us, and that feels so bad to be at odds inside our own families. And so like having some tools that we can understand both who am I in this, but also what's going on in the family is essential. We have a few of those. We have some that are looking at community. We have some that are looking at organizations, like in our churches, in our schools, in our like organizational, like even commerce and business. And then also, and I'd say in analysis, we're really trying to keep the analysis, the analytical level at the level that we can make a difference, that we as individuals can make a difference. So we're looking at individuals, we're looking at these families, we're looking at communities and organizations. We will take a little look also, of course, at national level, at global level, and we will also certainly be looking at these big levels in terms of history that's gone on in the past. But at the end of the day, we are really working on who are we and what could we do to help change happen in this class, right? And so there are many other classes we're going to try to talk you into, but I'm teasing. But in this class, we're trying to give a basic toolkit so that anybody who wants to try to understand what's going on can actually have a few tools that can say, okay, I can at least look at this and get a little bit better of an idea.
Thank you. Now we're getting close to the end of our webinar today. I want to offer just a quick answer. I see a question in the chat about whether SPI classes are in person only in Harrisonburg or if there are also virtual options. The Summer Peacebuilding Institute focuses explicitly on the in-person learnings. We have folks from around the world, sometimes over 100 folks coming together to learn and be together. That doesn't mean that this course cannot be accessed virtually. It just cannot be accessed at SPI. Every fall, Center for Justice and Peacebuilding does offer this course in a virtual option. So if you scan the QR code on the top of the screen, you will be able to see what courses are being offered at the Summer Peacebuilding Institute. You will see some other frequently asked questions and learn a bit more about it. You'll also be able to connect to the Center for Justice and Peacebuilding webpage, where you can learn about taking some of these courses in the regular academic cycle. And a lot of them are hybrid, or what we call hybrid, which means some people are taking them in person here in Harrisonburg, and some folks are joining online. So my last question for both of you, Gloria and Oscar, is you have both experienced the Summer Peacebuilding Institute a number of times in the past. What is one favorite memory that you cherish from that would have happened at a Summer Peacebuilding Institute sometime in the past? So what is something that has stuck with you? And preferably a positive one.
Let me start before Gloria takes this. For me, it was Gloria's welcome when I first came to Summer Peacebuilding in 2015, and these were her words. We are the keepers of the well here in Harrisonburg, EMU, and the whole world comes to drink from the well. And I think that stuck with me. And every other year, I've often tried to make my way back there to go and drink from that well. And I think it's the greatest metaphor that I would invite everybody in this chat and others everywhere to come and drink. We will be stirring the well so that it's ready for them.
Thank you. I would say that what I love about SPI, and I've actually been working with SPI since the very beginning, since we had our very first SPI in 1996, and 95 and 94 we had sort of a small iteration of that. It's just the people who I meet and who share space and learning. And I mean, I'm here. I teach at EMU, and I'm here in Harrisonburg, but I have learned from the world, and I have very benefited so much from friendships with people like Oscar and Gaurav. But yeah, I am who I am because you all have come to Harrisonburg, and we're not the only well in the world where you can come, but it's a place to come, and we can share water together and learn from each other. And so it feels unique in a lot of ways to me.
Thank you both so much for offering your time and a bit of a taste of analysis, understanding conflict. And thank you for everyone who has joined, who is either watching with us live right now or reviewing this at any time in the future. If you are interested in learning more, please visit us at emu.edu/SPI. You can email us at spi@emu.edu, and we'll be happy to help you find the courses that are right for you or to make your way to the Summer Peacebuilding Institute. So once again, thank you for joining us today. Any last questions you can drop in the chat. We'll leave it open for about 1 more minute, and then we'll be signing off. So thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you. Good to see you, Patty.
Thank you very much. Good to see you, Spike.